So we're continuing our look at Oklahoma's opponents in the 2024 season, and the Tulane Green Wave come up next. And again, it's an interesting team because no Michael Pratt, a guy that helped really carry the load for that program over the last 5 years or so. No Willie Fritz, a head coach who helped develop that program into arguably the best group of 5 program over the last few years, the most consistent. Again, they had big wins over USC. They had a close call, if you're an Oklahoma fan, against Oklahoma at the beginning of the 2021 season. So there's a lot to unpack when we look at Tulane. Where are you kind of focusing your attention? Because, again, it's going to be a totally different program than what we've seen.
Yeah, Jon's coming in as the new head coach there, replacing, like I said, Willie. And I guess the thing for me is what kind of cohesion will they have by the third game of the season, right? Only 10 starters are coming back. If you add the transfers they're bringing in, it started before, that's 15. And the quarterback, Ty Thompson, transferred in from Oregon. Not sure what he really is, right? Because you didn't see much of him at Oregon. I mean, Bo Nix basically ran things there, and for the last couple of years. So, Ty's now trying to come in on his own and make something happen. So the quarterback position's going to be of a lot of intrigue, right? And then, of course, that defense. Tulane's been trying to come in with a lot of defensive players, and I know that in conference, they've got a lot of dudes that are making the conference team. So I'm curious to see exactly what they look like playing this season on the defensive side of the ball. I think that's going to be the thing that makes or breaks them going into the AAC and honestly in the game against us.
So, Jon Sumrall hasn't been a head coach much, but he's 23-4 overall as a head coach, spent time at a lot of different places. Tulane before, he's been at San Diego, he's been at Kentucky, Ole Miss. So it's an intriguing dude, but again, not the same guy that you have with Willie Fritz. He was at Troy and had some success with the Trojans there, but now hoping to take that and turn it into success with Tulane. I think what helps him is that he's recruiting a similar area, with Troy down there and kind of that SEC footprint, trying to make significant impacts and find those hidden gems. Well, he was successful at Troy. Now he's hoping to take that to another level with the backing and the support that he has at Tulane. That's going to be to another level. We've seen, guys that were at the lower kind of group of 5 level programs be able to make a jump and make significant splashes as they kind of climb. Kalen DeBoer is one of those dudes, was coaching in the FCS or the NAIA at one point, and then went to Fresno State, had a ton of success, went to Washington, now at Alabama, just had a lot of success different places. So if he can continue that, that'll be intriguing. But to me, as I look at this game and I start to scout the opponent, it looks just like that final tune-up game for the Oklahoma Sooners. If there were a preseason in college football, the Oklahoma Sooners have it in their non-conference schedule, and Tulane gives them an opportunity to work out all the final kinks as they get ready for Tennessee.
Yeah, the good thing is these tune-ups aren't going to be borderline cakewalks. Now, I mean, we talked about Temple, and unfortunately, my appreciation for them playing against us. And when we scheduled this game was back when Matt Rule was actually still running things. So they were actually they were up and coming at the time. And unfortunately, things have not gone the direction to keep it that way. But that one's kind of your tune-up. And like I said, the others are really good tune-ups in preparation for the SEC, because Houston bringing in the players they're bringing in, Tulane having that Louisiana footprint and getting players that usually they don't end up at LSU but want to go to LSU. So they've got some big players, right? They've got some size on them. And so in the last, a couple times we played them, they were competitive with Willie. And so I think Jon's going to be able to do the same thing. Coach Sumrall is going to be able to keep them competitive, especially, like you said, the success he had at Troy and recruiting in the same area. I guess the big question is going to be, what does Ty Thompson bring to the table? That, to me, I think he's going to change it, because we knew Michael Pratt was everything for them, right? If they had Pratt in that Ole Miss game, they win that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they did everything possible to almost win it without him. So, right. So when they get that close, it makes you a little nervous. I'm ready to see what they look like at that point.
So you're looking at a quarterback that was highly thought of in that recruiting cycle. And, Oregon decided to go the transfer quarterback route and go with Bo Nix and then go with Dylan Gabriel. And then also, added another, big time quarterback prospect in Dante Moore, getting the transfer from UCLA. So let's not sleep on Ty Thompson. We're not going to do that. Again, it's going to be an athletic dude that's going to create some headaches for Oklahoma in the read option game, in the run game, in the RPO game. But this is going to be a big jump for him in competition. Tulane, this is not going to be an easy road trip for them, even though Tulane typically is going to have some difficult games. The week before they play Oklahoma, they host Kansas State. So they will be game ready for Oklahoma after they play Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards and a Chris Kleiman team that will be very well coached. So Oklahoma can't really sleep on this Tulane team. It's not your same team, but it's going to be a good team. Whether it's a really, really good team in year one under Jon Sumrall, that remains to be seen. But I think it's going to be a good team.
Yeah, no, I don't think that they're going to be a slouch, right? I mean, last season they did go 11-3, and again, they did lose a lot of players, bringing back only 10 returning starters. But I mean, they did some work in the portal overall. It's going to hinge on the quarterback, of course, and they still got Kai Horton too. Right? I don't want to sleep on him. He's a returning quarterback who played in that Ole Miss game whenever they lost Michael Pratt. So we'll see how things turn out there. Defensively, though, as long as Tulane keeps majority of that defense intact, or even scheme or something of that nature, keep and stay aggressive, I think that they're going to be a challenger. Right now, Phil still has them rated as the second best team in the AAC and right behind UTSA. That's going to be a big one, man. If they're going to be that competitive and have this many players on the first and second team, I mean, one big one, you get to see the return of our boy Mario Williams. He makes his return to Norman from, after leaving Norman for USC and then ended up at Tulane. They did a good job of bringing in some really good players, and he's actually considered a preseason pick for the first team for the AAC. So, I mean, talented kid. I just hope we this will be the second game in a row we get to run into a former Sooner from the last regime, which is kind of intriguing.
Yeah, so they'll play Houston and face Latrell McCutcheon. That'll be the offense's opportunity to, say a little something. And then the next week they'll play Mario Williams. And, Gentry Williams and Woody Washington are going to want to have something to say about what Mario Williams does that day. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in to the show and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the program wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all platforms and over on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. Also go check out the Locked On College Football podcast for your second listen. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Also, go check out the Locked On College Sports 24/7 streaming channel over on YouTube as well, getting you ready for the college football season with great shows from across the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow Jay on Twitter at Unfair Sports, myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all the social media platforms, and we'll be back to break down tight end. Is it Bauer Sharp? Is it Jake Roberts? Will we get a young gun stepping up and making plays in 2024? Coming up on our next episode of Locked On Sooners. But until then, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer
Sooner.